The Amazing Digital Circus is one of my favorite shows. It is a beautifully real depiction of trauma, of queerness, of mutual aid, contemplating questions about sentience and AI. Here is why you should watch it, as well as some video essays critical analysis on its themes for you to keep in mind if you watch the show or if you already have watched the show. I recently urged my Discord to watch the Amazing Digital Circus, and their response, go binge mid. I've often found that people are reluctant to watch the Amazing Digital Circus. Whether they call it mid or brain rot, people often show a reductionist and completely blatant lack of understanding towards the show. These people are objectively wrong. They eschewed the digital circus's peakness in favor of excuses to not watch the damn show. I normally talk about visual novels on my channel, but I really want more people to talk about this show with. In that vein, I'd be really happy if you subscribe to the channel and maybe join the Discord, discord.gg/SkyeActsOut, to discuss the show or just see future video essays on media that I really need to make video essays on, like of the devil. Besides really liking the show, what are my true qualifications for making this video essay? Well, I simp for Jax hard. He is my meow meow.
Hashtag Jax Kinney, hashtag Jax Yume, hashtag no doubles, hashtag funny bunny, but I am funny. Anyways, for a brief synopsis of the Amazing Digital Circus, Pomni, our primary point of view character, is trapped due to unknown circumstances in a circus as the newest of 6 other humans. They are, as time passes, or, well, pretty immediately, sent on adventures led by the circus's ringmaster, Kane. The show is a mostly ensemble cast, focusing on Pomni as protagonist and Jax as deuteragonist and foil to Pomni. It's actually led to a lot of unnecessary Twitter drama aimed at Gooseworks, the creator of the show, when she claimed Jax was the second protagonist rather than it being strictly an ensemble cast. But I disagree, it's still kind of an ensemble cast. Every other character is lovable and gets plenty of screen time. Every character is, and I'm going to be blunt about this, deeply traumatized and flawed in their own ways, sometimes leading them to be more or less functional than others. But as the show progresses, everyone needs to confront themselves and their relationships to the other characters. Jax, though, is the most interesting, best, and prettiest totally transgender woman of a character. She is sarcastic, standoffish, and kind of a prick, and like she would so use 4chan's TTTT board. Actually, TADC did something very clever with Jax in that Gooseworks did not explain Jax's character to Michael Kovac, his VA, which led to a really dynamic and evolving performance. I love it so much. Pomni's arrival happens a little deceptively in media res, but also acts as a catalyst for the plot, but also for the character's narrative arcs. She is, well then, immediately thrown into her first of many adventures, a lot of which happen off-screen between episodes. Adventures focusing primarily on a character's narrative arc, or the story of the circus, are what's shown on screen. Some people, in my opinion, view brain rot as a sort of second-screen filler, and this is not it at all. The show is PG-13 on the surface, and uses the aesthetic of a show aimed more at general audiences. Examples being the characters all having bodies differentiated from their human bodies as a sort of anthropomorphization. But as TADC tackles some really interesting topics, and it just has moments that hit way too hard, and it's deceptive in the way it presents itself. The rest of this review contains mild or moderate, depending on who you ask, thematic spoilers. The circus itself is implicitly traumatic, a place where you can't die, and are in a constant, never-ending loop of mediocre, slop, or downright horrific adventures outside of a body that's your own. Some really real depictions of trauma and how different people handle it arise from this. The closest thing to death in this virtual reality, abstraction, is a sort of point of no return for characters' mental health caused by the constant distress of the circus. Even though the effects of abstraction are shown in the first episode, we don't fully know what abstraction is, and partially because we don't know what it is, we can feel the character's senses of loss, fear, ambivalence, and complacency to the abstraction of others or the idea of abstracting themselves. Pomni values and cares for life deeply, even when it's arguably not sentient. She fears abstraction and reaches out her hand to those who need help, in turn forming relationships of mutual aid and trust. Jax, her foil, my beautiful meow meow, develops a spiteful nature and ambivalence to life, including his own. Their mutual existence teaches Pomni how to value herself and learn to love life further in her own way. Meanwhile, Pomni's actions question Jax's methods of dissociating from and suppressing trauma, leading to his destabilization and confrontation of death and life. TADC depicts how finally confronting trauma can be destabilizing and that every person handles this differently. Them confronting both their own personal and collective traumas serve to make the cast bond stronger, allowing them to become not just connected, but more independently functional, with moments of mutual support between characters being some of the sweetest, most inspiring moments TADC has to offer. The animation really captures its themes of trauma and mental health, whether that's the visuals of abstraction shown early on, or how characters' eyes move in subtle or overt ways. A lot of attention to detail and love for the show is seen in the animation. The characters' movements and expressions as well as designs really stand out, whether that's the obvious like Zubal's design representing their queerness, or Jax's lackadaisical and aloof movements giving you an idea of who he is, at least on the surface. I have a close friend who I've been trying to convince to watch the show. Their reasoning for not, despite knowing how good it is that something about the animation is off-putting and deeply disturbing to her. I do believe this is somewhat intentional on the show's part. The bodies of the characters in TADC are uniquely cartoonish and slightly uncanny, made all the more with how human and lifelike their movements and expressions are. A character like Kane might have more cartoonish and fast animations. On the other hand, Ragatha's are frantic when anxious, while Gangel's mania is so well acted through fast switches between erratic and twitchy movements, or sometimes ballet-esque bliss. This all leads to what can be a jarring and ever so slightly mildly uncomfortable viewing experience, and seeing these lifelike expressions of emotion in cartoon characters. It's basically FNAF. When it comes to designs, my favorite example to the care put towards each character is Zubal. Zubal is a non-binary or gender-fluid character who changes out parts of their body on a day-to-day basis depending on how they wish to express gender. This is often understated and not discussed overtly. It's just part of who they are and how they present themselves. This lends itself to good moments of casual or overt gendered and queer horror, as well as queer joy. Right at the start of the first episode, Zubal opting out of an adventure leads to little creatures taking away their parts separately away from them, removing their agency of movement but also of expression. Conversely, there are moments of extreme queer joy in the show, where Zubal wearing a star symbolizes not just their growth as a character and their understanding of themselves, but serves as a sign to the other characters that queer joy exists and is obtainable. That normal moments of queer joy exist, especially in your relationships with those around you and those who you might consider found family. Kane, the primary antagonist of the show and ringmaster of the circus, is an AI. Though this was primarily a theory for a while, it is casually mentioned more and more throughout the show. Kane is a really real and interesting depiction of AI. He strays from our current conceptions of AI, LLMs, Gen AI, and leans more into thoughts of how we might eventually get AI via neural networks that continuously learn knowledge from not just other sources, such as the themes of a circus, memories of people, the internet, but from itself. Kane is really fascinating to watch over the course of the show, as you can view the ways in which he develops and changes his sense of self similarly to that of a human, especially a human child.
Not to nerd out for a minute, but a good example of this is the concept of theory of mind.
I actually helped a teeny tiny bit with IRL research on theory of mind and AI models a few years ago. Theory of mind is the simple idea that your thoughts, feelings, and perspective of the world can and often are different from the people around you. This is something current AIs nor Kane have. An interesting methodology of implementing theory of mind into machine learning models has been, for example, the implementation of theory of mind in esports bots. In games like League of Legends, God forbid I will never play that game, theory of mind in bots allows them to calculate not just using the inputs of their own actions, but the inputs and the actions and possible feelings and thoughts of the players on the team of the bot and on the opposing team. I haven't checked in much on this research recently, but if it turns out Kane is an experiment, it's implementing theory of mind into AI for the sake of sentience, I'm gonna lose my... Throughout the show, Kane does actually develop theory of mind, similar to how a human child does over their early years. There's definitely more I can say here, but I want to wait to make a more in-depth video essay on TADC when the next episode comes out.
I actually had a dream recently where the Digital Circus's cast, I only know what Michael Kovac looks like, obviously, were escaping like a submarine IRL, like Digital Circus, Iron Lung style, and that was the final episode. And I don't know, I do have my theories about the show. The Utah Teapot is everywhere. What if the Digital Circus was actually in Utah, like FNAF? I definitely want to talk more about AI in the Amazing Digital Circus, especially as the final episode comes out in about a month. I bought tickets immediately when they dropped to go see it in theaters with some friends. If you like this video and want to see possibly those analyses on AI and the digital circus, especially from someone who knows at least a little bit of computer science, please consider subscribing and staying tuned for that, maybe even supporting me on my Ko-Fi if you like the video. Thank you, and bye.